Welcome to this session of Ask a Coach, where here at the Complete Leader community, we have a coach, and then we respond to questions that come from the community. And these coaches provide a unique perspective, their perspective on the particular issues or problems that the community will send in. And today we have Davina Ware, and she has been or is a career transition coach. She's a founder of Upwardly Paved Path, and she's going to be responding to a question that relates very much to her expertise. So welcome, Davina.
Hi, Francis. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here and provide some unique and interesting perspective on a really great question coming from our community.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're here, and I think you're going to provide us some interesting things to think about. So here's the question, and it says, I have been working for this company for 5 years, and we're growing rapidly. I like the work and the part that I have in helping the company grow. My work is appreciated, at least from what I can tell from my supervisor and their reviews. I would like to advance. Others who have been in this company for less time than I have been promoted before me. I don't know if I'm even being considered or not. I work hard. I value the work that's being done here. Is it maybe because I'm a woman? There's something going on there. The people that have all been promoted, or all the people that have been promoted, have been men. That's why I'm thinking that. Or is there something else going on? I feel stuck. I want to know what I can do to advance or at least get the attention of my supervisor.
I love this question for a lot of different reasons. I think it hits on things that we might not readily think about. That, and I've also experienced this in my career. But the first thing that jumps out at me for this person asking the question is, there's a lot of uncertainty here. There's a lot of unknowns, which means that it's hard to place judgment on what's happening in the situation until we have some clear black and white answers. So the first thing I would say to this person is to understand or get clarity on where people are being promoted. Is it even in the line of work that you do? Is it, because let's say the company is growing, it really could be a matter of filling a need. So let's say it's in IT or technology, and you have someone who's been working there a while, but as they're growing, they realize that they need to hire more people in that department. So they may take the people who have exhibited some great initiative, who work hard and have a great grasp of the functions of the role. And so in order to grow, it's easier to promote the people that already know the system, kind of fit within the culture, and to train them to train new people, as opposed to hiring a more senior person to then oversee the folks that you already have. So that's one perspective to look at and think about. The other thing is, they mentioned, my work is appreciated as far as I can tell. That means you don't know. So it's important, I would say, to then have a conversation with the supervisor, and in a very humble way, in a way that is more inquisitive than accusatory, to say, I really like working here. As they've stated, I've helped the company grow. Am I doing a good job? Or let's have a conversation about my work. And not waiting till review time to do that, but to have an open conversation, and to preface it by saying, I just want to make sure that I'm on track and that your expectations in speaking to the supervisor are met and we're satisfactory. So I want to be able to help continue to grow this company from my standpoint, from my role. Within that meeting, as was stated by the contributor, is that they would like to advance. There is a common misconception that managers kind of just pluck someone out of the pool and say, I want to advance you. As I mentioned before, in some cases, it's a sense of need where people get promoted. But in other cases, for example, if the department is really trying to get some structure together and keep things running, to keep a flow as the company is growing, they may not be looking specifically to promote someone. And they don't know that you want to be promoted unless you say something. So you have to put people on notice. Because as I mentioned, unless there's a specific need, or maybe it's review time and they're reviewing those kinds of things. But even in review time, an employer or supervisor has to ask themselves, is this what they want? If it's not been expressed to them, then they also are making assumptions that maybe they don't feel ready. Or so you have to say, I would like to advance. I'm looking forward to growing within the company. And then taking that a step further, how can I do that? Asking questions about what the advancement would look like. Is this something that can happen within 6 months, a year from now? Is there a clear direction of where you would go next? That also can stifle promotion activities, because it may not be a clear-cut path for you in your role, or the next tier is already occupied by someone else. So in some organizations, they might create opportunities for you to use different gifts, skills, and talents to, move forward. Or it could be creating another role, or it could be you moving to another department. But you won't know unless you have your conversation with your supervisor, outlining your desires and approaching them as a partner of how can we partner together so that I can advance.
Yeah. I want to interrupt for a minute and just make a comment. We don't know if the supervisor is a man or a woman.
Good point.
But we do know that from research, and it's been documented pretty well, that women have a tendency not to be as expressive about their work, whereas men will just blurt out how great they are. And I know that's simplistic, but the point being that you're recommending, or you're saying that this would be a really important thing for her to do, and to be as specific as possible, because
yes,
you just don't know until you ask.
Yeah.
Because they'll make assumptions. Supervisors, and particularly if they're men, will make assumptions. Yeah. Okay, thanks. You go ahead.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And that was the next thing too I was thinking about, is when we don't have a sense of understanding, naturally our brain looks for patterns for things, especially if we're feeling anxious or we're just trying to grasp some sense of truth or fact in an unknown situation. And I believe that's probably what may be happening here. So we can take a look and say, oh, it's only men that's being promoted, but there's so many other unknowns with that. Is it department based? So it could be there's a lot of men that work in that department, and that could be why. It could be what you said, Francis, in terms of they're just more vocal with saying, hey, I've been doing a really good job. How can I be promoted? So it could be a sense of that. So I think having more information, having a clear conversation with the supervisor to determine the state of the company, the state of your department, and opportunities for growth. I think finding that information out first before you make any judgments will work in your best interest. Again, I have been in this situation, and unfortunately, it was the case in terms of certain people being promoted more easily than others. There was a sense of favoritism, but it took me years to find that out because I uncovered every stone, so to speak. I asked a lot of questions. I talked to women who have been recently promoted and asked about their experience. That way I was able to say, okay, am I judging this based on my feelings, my anxiety, my dissatisfaction, or is this the truth? but you've got to get out there and do a little sleuthing on your own. And in my case, as I spoke to a person, a woman who had just recently been promoted, and she had to jump through a lot of hoops. And she had been there almost 10 years at this agency I was at, and she had to jump through a lot of hoops to be promoted. But I saw several men who had been there less than a year be promoted more than once. And that was a pattern. But before I judged the situation, I was very clear, black and white, of what was happening. So ultimately, leave no gray areas with this. Be very clear on what is actually happening and if you can deal with it. But it starts with you. So even going into that meeting with the supervisor, have a plan, write things out in very black and white terms so that your supervisor has something tangible to take with them. You have something to go over that helps them to get buy-in. It helps to take the assessment and to say, this is where I'm really good at, and I think I can continue to move the company forward based on my strengths of this assessment. So yeah, ultimately, that would be my response, and my takeaway to that is get very clear on what's happening and what you want, and say something so that you can get your supervisor's attention.
Yeah, great. Well, and I think it's really good advice. And I like the idea of the not judging, even though we have a tendency to do that if we don't have enough information. I think that this is probably more important than ever because of the workforce shortage and the need for people to be filling positions. Unless your intentions are known,
Right.
Yeah, supervisors are busy and they may not.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're
They
helping
have
them.
other roles.
Yeah, and helping you.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Any other thoughts? And if not, we can wrap up. I have one other recommendation for folks here that they can find in the Complete Leader website. But any other thoughts?
No, I just think in general, I'm glad you mentioned it, in the space post pandemic and the great resignation we've got to have more authority with our careers instead of them happening kind of randomly and by chance. But we've got to take authority in our careers, and by asking these questions and getting clear, that's a great way to do that in this situation.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks, Davina. This is really super. And I appreciate you taking the time today to do this. The recommendation I have is, if you want to know more about how someone's going through this, there's actually a series on the Complete Leader website called Growing Influence. And it comes from a book that Ron Price wrote. And it is actually about a woman in a particular role who wanted to advance and how she goes through that process. It's really quite good. So with that, I want to wrap up this session of Ask the Coach. And if you want to talk with Davina specifically, or myself, Francis, I don't know if I said that in the beginning, you can email us at info@thecompleteleader.org. Thanks very much.